We've got a first piece of information about the leadership contest, Anna, and that is that Jeremy Hunt, the newly appointed Chancellor, will not stand in this contest. Presumably, he feels he's got an enormous job to do trying to work out what cuts to push through, probably for this statement that's due to be happening on October the 31st to reassure the markets, to show that Britain can live within its means. But Jeremy Hunt will not stand in this contest, taking one of the big beasts of the Conservative Party out of the frame and leaving the way, presumably, for discussions between Rishi Sunak, who I was told this morning is very, very up for the job, Penny Mordaunt, who's been making it clear in her public performances that she's up for the job, Suella Braverman, who resigned, critical of Liz Truss in a move that many of her allies suggests that she might be up for the job. The question is, which will stand aside and which will survive in a contest that goes back to the way contests were run before 2000, before the rules were changed, in a contest that will be determined only by Conservative MPs. So it's going to be an enormous week inside the Houses of Parliament and in the tea rooms and bars and in the WhatsApp groups of Conservative MPs as they try to work out which of the names they can rally behind for the next Prime Minister, who will be presumably installed in about a week's time when Liz Truss steps down as Prime Minister. She's gone as leader of the Conservative Party. She has informed the King, but there is now a few days for the Conservative Party to sort itself out. Keir Starmer pointing out that having a third Prime Minister in this Parliament should mean that we now have a general election. Conservative MPs absolutely desperate to avoid that. And so they will be trying to put personal and political differences aside. Jeremy Hunt presumably won't be taking a great deal of part in that. There's an interesting question, Anna, about quite what this means for Jeremy Hunt in the sort of medium to long term. If he doesn't take part in the contest over the next few days, has he been given some kind of assurance that he might stay on as Chancellor, stay on to do the package of cuts that is on October the 31st, or it's still expecting on October the 31st? Is he expecting to be Chancellor at that point, and he's been given a reassurance by Graham Brady that whoever takes over would keep him there? Well, that is constitutionally complicated, so we're going to have to wait to see what that role is that he sees himself doing over the next few days. But there's no doubt that the arrival of Jeremy Hunt last week stabilised the markets, and nobody here wants the resignation of Liz Truss to destabilise the markets once more. So I think that there is a lot of uncertainty in what's going on. But I think Jeremy Hunt deciding not to stand is a signal that he certainly wants to move at pace, trying to work out which bits of government department budgets to cut and all the rest of it, while the rest of the Conservative Party presumably goes into a high intensity frenzy. And I think if you step back from the personalities involved, there are big policy questions that will be kicked around at lightning speed in this leadership contest. Liz Truss came in and spent 44 days in power with a very particular ideology that reflected a certain strand of libertarian conservative thinking. Will Tory MPs just now reject that outright? Will they say that has failed? Candidates, potentially like Suella Braverman, not that far away from a lot of the things that Liz Truss was doing. Could they end up with a candidate for Prime Minister that's a bit closer to what the kinds of things that Liz Truss espouses, perhaps at a slightly slower pace? Or do they do a sharp handbrake turn, and having rejected Rishi Sunak just at the start of September, do they then decide that actually, as the polling of Conservative Party members suggests, actually that he is the right answer, given that this is an economic crisis, given that the warnings that he made turned out to be true about Liz Truss's plans, and given that he's been quietly biding his time, not really causing any difficulty in the public eye. He's been having a few quiet conversations with colleagues that supported him on the leadership contest. He has been seen a little bit in Portcullis House in Westminster, a little bit on the party circuit last week, having conversations both with Tory MPs and notably at a Bloomberg party with Rachel Reeves. So he's just been there in the background. I suspect the other big figure in this leadership contest at the moment, as we get out of the starting blocks, is Penny Mordaunt. She, of course, did that barnstorming speech 48 hours ago in the Commons, standing in for Liz Truss, who was asked to justify some of the economic chaos. She sent Penny Mordaunt in her place. Famously, Penny Mordaunt said that Liz Truss wasn't under a desk, but Liz Truss turned up much later on in that statement as Penny Mordaunt was defending her. But I think quite a lot of MPs are attracted to Penny Mordaunt's bombast, to her ability in the chamber, to her wit, and to the way that she can dispatch political opponents with a sort of vigour and firmness that perhaps isn't seen. It's not necessarily one of the strengths of maybe Rishi Sunak or even Liz Truss. So I can see that Penny Mordaunt can hold some attraction for MPs. But the question during the leadership contest so often was, yes, but what does she think about economics? And does that mean that she's the right person to hold the room at this point in time, given this particular set of challenges? There could be wild cards. We could have others. And we are just going to have to wait and see.